What's up, guys? Welcome to the first long-form poker vlog today. I know I've been uploading poker shorts, but today we're playing at
Are you paying Venmo or cash?
we're playing at the Fairchild Poker Room. We're gonna be playing 25-cent, 50-cent, buy-in with $25. Let's jump into the hands, shall we? For our very first hand, we look down at 10 Jack of Clubs. I open to 175. The small blind then decides to call, and then the +1 player decides to 3-bet to 950. The low jack does end up calling, and I can't decide if this is worth it or not. But then I do decide that yes, it is worth it. And then, unfortunately, also the small blind folds. The flop comes King 3 7 with 2 clubs. We got ourselves a flush draw. But then the +1 player decides to c-bet for $12. And the low jack is at first trying to call, but then he decides that he just needs to jam. He jams for $15.50 here. Now, I'm not sure if the correct move here really is to call. However, with the straight draw as well as the backdoor flush draw, I decide to call. Sorry, that's a front door flush draw and the back door straight. And of course, the +1 player also calls the all-in. The turn is the 7 of clubs. We make our flush. However, I decide to check to try and set a trap. However, he checks back. River is the 5 of the hearts, and he checks. I have a feeling he's really not going to call anything, so I jam anyways, but of course he snap folds. We take down a nice sized pot as the all-in player has nothing and he decides to muck his cards here. It's a nice win to start off the night. The next hand, we look down at the bullets. We have aces. I'm in the big blind this time, then the cutoff opens to $2, so it's time for a 3-bet. I think 650 is a good size here. Under the gun does end up making the call. However, the original raiser, the cutoff, does unfortunately fold his cards here. So we go heads up to the flop in position. Flop comes 9, 2, 8, rainbow. Under the gun then bets 450. I decide to call. Turn is the 7 of hearts. This time I decide to lead out with 675. And after a bit, the villain does call. And then the river is the 7 of clubs, pairing the board and giving us 2 pair. I check, hoping to check raise, and then he decides to carve out a nice chunk of change of $8.50. Now there's a lot I could do here, including smooth calling, or I could jam, but he's probably not gonna call too much if we raise, because people don't really raise on the river unless they have the absolute nuts. But we do decide to min raise him to 19, and after a little bit of thinking, he does end up folding, and we take down another nice pot with our bullets here. Well done. Let's move on to the next hand, shall we? This time, we have Queen 8 suited in the small blind. The low jack opens to 175 and it folds to me, and I decide to 3-bet to 375. The big blind calls, as does the +1 player and the low jack. We go 4 ways to the flop out of position. Flop comes 9, 9, king, rainbow. However, the flop does end up checking through. Is the 2 of hearts. This time, I lead out. I lead out for 8, around 2/3 of the pot now. However, the big blind is the only one to call, and everybody else decides to fold. And the river is our queen. And I decide to bet large, nearly a pot-sized bet, for around $18, which coincidentally also puts my opponent all in. And after thinking for a little bit, he does end up folding, and we take down another one. Now we're in the cutoff and we look down at ace-6 offsuit. We do a standard open to 175. However, it folds back to the under the gun player who decides to put in the call. We go heads up to the flop in position. 7, 2, queen of hearts show up on the flop. It's kind of a scary board. There's certainly a lot of flushes out there. However, when he checks to us, we decide to check back this time. The turn is the 7 of spades, and he bets out for $2. With this price, I can't not call here, so I decide to. The river is the 6 of spades. Not bringing in too much, though we do now have a pair. However, he does decide to bet out for $4.50, and this is probably a spot that you shouldn't be calling. You could be representing so many things. However, we do call, and he snap mucks as soon as we put in the call. He's been trying to bluff me off a lot, so it paid off this time. This time, we have my old favorite hand, pocket tens. We're in the +1 position and we do a standard open to 175. It folds to the button who puts in the call. However, then the small blind decides to go all in for 21-25. This is kind of an annoying spot as we do have tens, which are pretty strong. And while there are a lot of hands we are beating, there are also many hands that do beat us. Aces, kings, queens, ace, king, ace, queen are hands we might run into, and some of those hands we are behind on. After thinking about it though, I do decide to put in the call. We table our hands, and he shows queen jack off. We aren't in as terrible of a spot as I initially thought, however, as our hand is favored to win here 55% of the time. However, this does not happen as the runout includes a jack and a queen. We have queen 10 off on the button, and as usual, once again, I open to 175. The small blind calls and everybody else folds. The flop is jack 4 7. We don't really hit much, so we check, and as does the villain. And on the turn, we get our queen, and now we do have top pair. I decide to bet 275, and he calls. The river is the 10 of clubs, which does bring in the flush, which he probably has. However, we do now have 2 pair, which is going to make it a little difficult for me to fold his hand, which eventually I do end up calling. However, he does show us the flush, unfortunately, so we do muck our cards. Alright guys, that concludes our first long-form poker vlog here at the Fairchild Casino. We didn't do too bad. The numbers should be on the screen right now. And we will see you in the next vlog. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy.